guys, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. And this is yet another random first time watch from Hulu. And it's another sort of eco horror film. I've actually done a few of these recently. I think the last few I did was In the Earth and The Beach House. And this one is more akin to In the Earth than it is something like The Beach House. But it's very interesting, and it was kind of a roller coaster of opinions when I was watching it, because at first I was like, I don't really see where this is going. Then I was like, well, that's a ripoff of something. How is that not what I'm thinking of? But it ended up being pretty interesting and kind of deep and thought-provoking. It is very artsy. The CGI is very well done. And it's very well made and acted. And it came out last year, 2021, and that is Gaia. Which, to my understanding, Gaia is some sort of entity that's meant to take care of and protect the Earth. And, well, I'll get into the plot eventually, but it was directed by Jacob Bauer. This is a South African film, which I don't think I've seen too many from South Africa. But Jacob Bauer, and written by Tertius Cap, if I pronounce that correctly. Stars Monique Rockman, Carl Nell, Alex Van Dyke, and Anthony Osayemi. Jory Vanderwalt did the cinematography, and Pierre Henry Wickham did the score. It had a limited release in June of 2021, only grossed 126,000, but it holds an 80 on Rotten Tomatoes, which I can see why. It's very atmospheric. I love movies that not only take place in the forest, but really knows how to utilize the atmosphere and create this sense of dread, or how really show a forest as creepy as it can be. Obviously, the best example is still the Blair Witch Project, in my opinion. It's very similar to In the Earth, where it is sort of how this forest as a whole is kind of the creature or the antagonist, I guess. There is a human antagonist, but this is gonna be kind of hard to explain. But basically, and even the plot is kind of similar to In the Earth, where you have two people. I think these two park rangers. They're going into, and I actually have to look up the actual setting. Sitsikama Forest, I guess. This woman Gabby, and played by Rockman, and her co-worker Winston. They're going to check on something, and they end up in this part of the forest, and there's some sort of, well, their drone is taken by these two woodsmen. It looks like tribes people. They kind of look like. So Gabby goes to retrieve the drone, falls into a booby trap. Winston goes to look for her, but there's something in the forest that has some sort of spore that's being released that causes this infection that either turns people into the earth, like literally they'll have like mushrooms and fungi and moss growing out of them, or, and I don't know if there's more than one or if it's just this one, but there is this creature also that walks around that's sort of the major threat other than this infection, which I'll get to that. Gabby's taken it. She stops off at this cabin that she finds, and she finds out that the two tribes people, I thought they were brothers, but they're father and son. They're Baron and his son Stephen. And they're not just survivalists or just these guys that live out in the woods. It's slowly revealed that Barrett is this sort of madman. Used to be a scientist and now has some sort of religion where he worships the earth. He worships the earth. He believes that there's this some deity in the forest that will, as long as they appease it, when it brings on the apocalypse of when the earth takes itself back, they'll be saved and the rest of humanity will be wiped out when earth goes back to its naturalist state, pre-human. He even compares, humans on earth to being like apes in a cage. And he does go on these long, crazy tirades. He even looks like Manson in some scenes, like when he looks directly at the camera. But he's played by Carl Nell, and he does a great job. Alex Van Dyke plays Stephen, who's very quiet at first, and you can tell he really takes a liking to Gabby. And he's been there his whole life. I mean, you find out that Baron's mother got cancer and doctors kind of gave up, brought her out to the forest, and that's where Stephen was conceived and she died. And he sort of found this religion there. And there's this one certain tree where she lives. I'm guessing Gaia. They never really come out and say it. And they never really come out and say that this deity is real, or that the spores are from this deity, or if it's just this infection that happens to be in the forest. And I like that. I really like ambiguity. And Gabby really goes from just wanting to get back to where she can get back to the city, but then she slowly starts seeing that Baron might be insane and robbing Stephen of his young life. He says that the mother died 13 years ago, but he looks a lot older than 13. The effects on the spores and the creatures were very well done, especially for CGI. Especially how, I mean, you'll see like tree vines come in and the way it spreads, like infectious veins. That looked really cool. The way the spores just kind of flow through. And the sort of bad creature. And I don't know if this is like the antithesis or what Gaia is, or just what this spore infection can do. But tell me if this sounds familiar. It's this creature that sort of hunches down, kind of makes predator noises, but then it screeches and screams. Looks like it has a giant mushroom growing out of its head. It's blind, but it has incredible hearing and scent. And it came from a spore. Last of Us. I remember watching it, and first we hear the noise, and I'm like, it kind of sounds like Predator. And you just see movement in the background, like kind of making like a Predator noise. But then I started thinking, actually, that sounds a lot like a clicker. Then the first time we see it, it looks literally like a Last of Us movie when that, I'm calling them clickers, I don't give a shit, is on screen. You could literally close your eyes and listen to both, and it sounds like the same audio. Now, I don't know. I couldn't find anything on the filmmakers being inspired by The Last of Us. If you want to say coincidence or parallel thinking, this is very specific. But the way it ends has kind of led to sort of a joke fan theory that this is a prequel, which would make sense, but it's like Last of Us with a more eco-horror kind of religious horror aspect. You don't really see anyone turn into these clickers, which is fine. We really just see, and it's kind of slow. And it starts out like if you have like a wound, like a cut, little bits of fungus will start growing out of it. Spoiler alert, Winston does die or get infected. And when we see him, he is just overcome with all different kinds of fungi and moss. And essentially, the movie is her going from, wanting to understand what this man is about and then trying to get his son away from him and give him an actual life. And this movie doesn't really come right out and give us any definite answers, which again, I do appreciate. It does have some very nice camera work. The cinematography was very well done. In fact, we open up with this beautiful upside down shot of just the dense forest and then this river. And it was so well done that I was looking at it and I was like, that is the flattest, calmest water I've ever seen. And then it starts to turn. I realized it was still upside down. It does get very artsy and trippy, where I believe this is called yopo, but I could be wrong. Stuff that a lot of natives use, where it's like a powder, blow it in someone's face, and then they trip sack. There is a sequence when that happens, when she asks to understand, what they believe in. That was very interesting. Baron and Stephen will go to that one specific tree and they'll leave offerings. And when Baron looks into it, he believes that it's communicating with him, telling him what it wants. And I think by it means the earth. He wants to appease and satiate the earth so that they'll be spared while everyone outside the forest will be killed. They'll reap what they sow. From the earth, essentially. There's not much else to talk about without getting into spoilers, but it is a very slow burn. It does take a while. The real scares would be when the sort of clicker is on screen, which is very seldom, but very effective when it is on screen. I mean, the first few times we see it, it's doing that creepy thing, kind of like the spider walk from The Exorcist, making those clicker sounds. It just, when you have it barely in focus or shrouded in shadow, it works very well. All the effects work, again, CGI, but mostly the practical. Especially the end shot where we see a character completely engulfed in just this, earth, essentially. Yeah, I think it implies that once it completely overtakes, you'll essentially just grow into the earth, become one with the earth. But I was impressed with it. And at first I was thinking, okay, this is definitely a Last of Us ripoff. But it's definitely really just the fact that this infection comes from spores and just the aspect of the clicker, not necessarily what it does to everyone else in the movie. So there is enough of it here to really stand on its own and not be a complete ripoff. And I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was very well done. Now, if you're not into slow, artsy horror, if you don't like movies like, keeping it with Hulu, The Feast, if you don't like The Feast, you're probably not going to like this. If you didn't like In the Earth, you're definitely not going to like this. I'm not sure which one I liked more when put next to In the Earth. They both deal with, sort of the forest kind of being this threat that's trying to protect itself and kind of being this a metaphor for what humans do to the earth. very different though. I think In the Earth was a bit more direct. I mean, there's still plenty of ambiguity to it, but I feel like this was more ambiguous. But I thought it was very good, so I'm going to get to spoilers. While she's tripping, uh, it kind of comes clear to her that, which I like how it was shown. I thought this was very clever. Well, actually, before that, Stefan says that his mother is now part of the forest. And for a while, whenever Baron said she, like she won't let you leave, I always thought they were talking about his mother, and I thought he was, when he would go to the tree to pray, I thought it was to, his wife. Apparently not, but there is a tree. Oh, I guess it was just when she got the infection and died. This is what happened to her. But Stefan brings her to this one tree where there's this branch that looks like it has long fingers, even looks like it has a knuckle, and there's a wedding band on it. Looks like it's been growing with this wedding band on it. I thought that was an interesting way to show like what will happen to you after you're dead and you really become one with the earth. But it becomes clear that Baron, according to what he's being told, what he believes he's being told, is that the next sacrifice has to be his son. I don't know if this is a Abraham and Isaac kind of reference or a metaphor, but when she's tripping, we get all these quick cuts, quick edits and everything, but we do get a shot of Stefan with an arrow in his mouth and this eerie sort of sped up shot of Baron having sex with the ground. As if he loves the earth so much that he'll be willing to kill his kid, essentially. And the scene when he goes on this yelling tirade about the neon towers and, just everything about the city and what it does to the planet, you can really see the madness in him, and he did an excellent job. But, Stefan's been showing Gabby how to use, bow and arrow. They're very skilled with bow and arrow, and they have all these spiked booby traps all over the place. They always cover themselves in mud when they go out during the day. I'm guessing that covers the scent for these clickers, or the clicker. But when she leaves to go back to the city, she doubles back and tries to stop this sacrifice. And it kind of tries to play with the idea that the earth actually is alive, because she falls down this hill, it gets entangled in all these roots, and it looks like it's holding her so that Baron can do the sacrifice. And even these roots are holding Stefan's wrist down. And he looks at Gabby, he's like, I knew you would forsake me, knowing that you're not going to let anything interfere with this. But Gabby's able to get out. So it's like, is Earth really alive and holding her? Or, yeah. I like that it's ambiguous. Or maybe there's more clues and I just missed it. But there is kind of a tussle. A clicker does show up. And it does do that thing in The Last of Us where it gets really close to you and sniffs. And only Stefan's able to fight it. He stabs it a bunch of times with a knife, which if you've ever played Last of Us, you know you cannot do that. They can kill it with 1 or 2 arrows. Try that in The Last of Us. You'll go through all your fucking arrows. But in the end, Stefan's able to stab Baron. And we see he's already infected. He's got stuff growing out of his arm. Gabby had stuff growing out of her leg. And Baron even mentions, like, we are all infected already. But he makes it sound like we're all doomed, kind of thing. So then after he stabbed, Gabby pulls Stephen away so that they can leave as a clicker is coming. And I was hoping we could see what a clicker actually does to a person. We don't. But it does show that he's kind of gone mad. You know, his eyes are white. He's trying to put his blood in the tree hole, trying desperately to get this answer. Because whenever they put something in the tree for sacrifice, it looks like these shrooms blossom out, and then they eat those, kind of like communion. But Stephen takes Gabby back to the cabin. They lay down for a bit, and it appears that she's getting more and more covered. And then Stephen goes to leave. And the last shot we see of her is like, you can't even make out her person. It's this overhead shot where it's just this pile of earth, it looks like, in the middle of a room. And then that just fades into this overhead shot of treetops. And I thought that was effective and cool looking. And then it ends. There is a sort of mid-credit scene with Stephen either arriving or going to the city, sort of implying that he's going to infect people and sort of bring the end that Baron had talked about. So in a way, if he had sacrificed Stephen, he would have saved the Earth. But by not being able to, it's like everything he believed in will still happen anyway. And I think that's like where the Last of Us prequel theory kind of comes in, because he gets to the city and now everyone will be infected. But yeah, I thought this was well written, well acted, very, very well shot. Great cinematography, great tricks and angles with the camera. I love the ambiguity of it. Is there really a forest or earth deity or protector? Or is this guy really just like, has he just gone total Ted Kaczynski and just barricaded his life into this cabin with his crazy beliefs? And he has been working on this, a manifesto as well. Speaking of Kaczynski. I really like the effects, even the CGI. Yeah, the clicker probably could have been more practical, but the CGI didn't bother me. Loved the effects of just like that vine coming in, almost as if it's like sniffing someone. Then how it looks like all these veins kind of spidering off of it. Especially when Winston is first attacked, he's leaning against a tree. We see it kind of coming around, and then it just like spider webs out around him. I thought that looked great. And yeah, very thought-provoking. I really love these artsy horror movies. I know they're not for everybody. I know there will be people that will say, it's not a horror movie because the zombie doesn't need anybody. Or, for a lot of people, I've seen on here for a lot of people, a horror movie has to be like a Blumhouse film where you have a horror beat or a jump scare every 5 to 10 minutes. You can't have a slow burn, because then it's just a drama, But you can have a movie like The Feast, which really, all the horror stuff is at the end. Or, hell, go back to the 70s with Carrie. I've had someone tell me Carrie was a drama with a horror movie ending. No. A horror movie's a fucking horror movie. This is just a slow burn, well-written, ecological horror movie. And I thought it was very well done. Again, I don't remember much about In the Earth. I've watched so many movies since then. But I do remember really enjoying In the Earth. But I guess we'll see which one sticks with me more. But that is the 2021 film that you can find on Hulu, Gaia. Thank you for watching.